Hello, I'm Leanne Jones and a warm welcome to Media Week. Ahead on the program, Fairfax inking a deal with APN News and media spin-off NZME, and the outlook for print in focus at the Future Forum. Well, our co-host James Manning, editor and publisher of Media Week, is here in studio with me to take us through all those stories and more. But first, the subscription television industry making news this week with the Astra conference held in Sydney and a big announcement from Foxtel, who are looking to challenge the video on-demand players with a new offering. And James was at the conference and spoke with Foxtel CEO Peter Tonner. Here's some of what he had to say.
The intent of those packages is to recognise that the typical entry package, the basic package, doesn't suit everybody, and so we'll have 5 new entry packages that are tailored to customers' needs, and they'll start at lower entry prices. It's a genuine product proposition that suits those customers who don't want to pay for the premium service of having an IQ in their home and having the high-quality, linear, high-definition channels delivered via our satellite. People who want to bring their own device or bring their own broadband service will provide a cheaper way for them to access our great content.
And James, great to have you here in studio. Now, Foxtel wanting to really revolutionise, I guess, their access to subscription TV and the repricing and so forth.
Yeah, 5 packages, as Peter said then. You can bring your own device, so if you've got a PlayStation or some internet-connected device, a smart TV, you don't have to, there's no cost for the hardware. Be interesting to see, we tried to get the price out of Peter Tonner on the day. They weren't really, it was really an announcement saying there's going to be more announcements, so not a lot of detail yet apart from all those packages. They run the risk of confusing people. 5 packages, they don't include movies or sport either, so that's another add-on. So we think it'll be around between $10 and $15, that entry level. It needs to be down there if they're really going to challenge some of that pricing from Stan and Netflix, I think. Okay,
and it wasn't just on the pricing front, it was also on the content front, because they've announced a new deal with HBO to enhance the library there for their on-demand content. And again, Peter Tonner, you were discussing that around the new content. Let's take a quick listen.
It enables us to ensure that we have, in fact, 5 times the HBO content that we have on the service today. We have it available all of the time. One of the concerns that I've had expressed by consumers is, if you take Game of Thrones, for example, they love to watch Game of Thrones, but it'll be on demand one month and gone the next. This new deal changes that. All of the HBO content will be available all of the time, on demand, and also in the future downloadable to device like an iPad or a smartphone.
So, James, the HBO content and then, of course, launching the reimagining, I suppose, of the Picnic at Hanging Rock drama series as well. Yeah, sure.
Look, Foxtel have had great success with their local content. It's always well up there in the ratings that we run every week. Picnic at Hanging Rock seems like a great idea. 1975 movie, certainly a whole generation. It doesn't mean a lot to them, or they know it's, it's been a great icon of the cinema industry in the past. This will be 6 1-hour episodes, so you would expect that to do very well. The HBO deal, the big changes there is being able to keep all that content online for longer for catch-up viewing. So in the past, the episodes would be there for maybe 4 weeks, 6 weeks, something like that. This time they'll be there for, I think, for the length of this deal. They used to have what they call rest periods, where, if you wait too long, the show will disappear off your catch-up, but this time it won't. It'll just be there all the time.
All right, now Fox Sports was actually named Astra Channel of the Year, and this announcement came just a day after NRL, the pop-up channel was announced.
Sure, yeah, Channel 501, it's been rebadged. They're calling it NRL Finals Channel. We don't know what they're going to call it next year, because it'll be dedicated 24/7 from probably about February, early March next year. Might be called NRL on Fox, we're just not sure. But yeah, it's become the #1 channel on subscription TV since the Foxtel and Fox Sports did that deal with Nine to buy the simulcast rights to every NRL game. They just had their own games exclusively. In the past, they've knocked off Fox Footy, the AFL channel, which used to have a sort of a good grip on #1, but this year that's moved across to 501. So, yeah, it's a good reward for their rating success this year.
And, James, you were talking with CEO of Fox Sports, Patrick Delaney, there around anti-siphoning, and he was sort of saying that the whole world has changed now, and he believes that there's about time that the law actually changed and kind of came up to speed with things. Let's take a quick listen.
I think that whole law is antiquated. You know, the internet's not only here, fast broadband's here. Consumer expectations are completely different. The law actually stops us from doing things that our competitors can do, and we saw that in the Olympics, where Seven was able to buy the Olympics exclusively and run a pay TV service around it. That law, which has 1,800 events, doesn't say anything about those events having to be free. Doesn't have anything about them being live. So the whole world's changed, and it's about time that we looked at that law and brought it up to date with technology and the world.
I suppose, James, a long debated issue, but he's sort of making the point around the Olympics, evidence there that, you know, the laws are failing to make sports free to the public.
Yeah, Leanne, look, we've done a lot on this over the years. I've spoken to Patrick, spoken to Astra, spoken to government representatives. I don't think that law's going to change anytime soon. A comment out of the Minister's office this week, there's no plan at all to fiddle with that current legislation. They've really got their focus on those other media laws, which at this stage is still looking, you know, a long way off in the future.
All right, well, delivering one of the keynote addresses at the conference, the BBC's Dr. Michael Mosley, discussing how television can cash in on the obsession with health and fitness. He's had a long career both in front and behind the camera, and James Manning asked him how he got started in the industry.
So I actually spent 10 years as a director, then 10 years as an executive producer, and then now it's been 10 years as a presenter.
Did you ever envisage yourself as, you know, creating a brand, if you like, and becoming, you know, the star of the production?
Not in the slightest, no. It was completely random. I had this idea that I wanted to do the history of medicine told through self-experimenters, and so I was pitching that for about 14 years. Eventually I got in front of the controller of BBC 4 at the time, and she said, "Who's going to present this series?" And I said, "No idea." She said, "Why don't you do it?" And that was 10 years ago, and yeah, I've been lucky and I've continued doing things since.
Now, you're a substantial a driver of revenue, I guess, for BBC worldwide. Would it be too much of a claim to say, with the departure of Clarkson, May and Hammond and Top Gear, that you're sort of moved up the ladder a little?
I imagine it must have created a gap. To be honest, I have absolutely not a clue what I am worth to Worldwide at all. But I do. The relationship is a very much sort of mutual one, because Worldwide make my films possible. They put the money into it. They make it possible for them to be distributed around the world. Yeah. So it's a very mutually beneficial arrangement.
And do you enjoy sort of visiting the broadcasters and consumers of your content outside of the UK?
Absolutely love it. Really, really interesting. You get a completely different perspective on things, and you also learn a lot coming to conferences like this. You find out what other people are doing, and that is incredibly energising. Because the risk is, obviously, if you stay at home, you just get sort of domestic worries. And it is really, really thrilling, I have to say. People come and talk about your programmes. You also see a lot of other programmes, and yeah, it produces a lot of energy, a lot of buzz.
We enjoy your content mainly on BBC Knowledge in Australia and also SBS on free-to-air. What are the particular programs that really resonate globally with audiences? I
think that certainly one of the programs I did, which was Eat Fast, Live Longer, which was Horizon, that led to the 5-2 diet. The Fast Diet was a book I wrote, so that, as a single program, really resonated. But I do quite a lot of... I also do a series called Trust Me, I'm a Doctor, which is shown here, has been sold to PBS, and is also popular in Scandinavian countries. I'm very popular in Sweden. I was actually surprised. I was in the loo yesterday here, and somebody came up to me and said, "I really like your shoes." And I looked down at my feet, and he was saying, "Your shoes." I go, "I really like your shoes." So yeah, it's really good fun. New Zealand as well, I was in recently, and I was surprised to discover a lot of people watch BBC Knowledge there, and therefore they're very aware of what I do. But I think people like the fact that I embrace it very wholeheartedly. I do the experiments on myself. I throw myself into it with a great deal of enthusiasm.
No, I guess that stretches out the production time for some of these projects, because we sit down and consume it in an hour or something, but you must spend a lot of time getting it right and, as you say, doing all the testing.
Yes, so typically a production can last anywhere from 3 months to a year, depending what they are. I do quite a lot of programs simultaneously as well. But some of the things like the Horizon I did, because it entailed my losing, I think it was around 10 kilos. That actually took about 3 months, but part of that was just being in the edit. So sometimes what they do is they build it into the edit. Edit is typically, say, 2 months. So what you do is you get to a certain point. The thing about these programs is also we almost never know how they're going to turn out. So pretty much the last day of the edit, you don't quite know what the conclusion of this film is going to be, which is a little bit hair-raising. I did one, for example, which involved swallowing tapeworm cysts. And really right till the end, I didn't know if I was infected or not. And it was only when I swallowed a pill camera, and you could actually see the little tapeworm down there. And this was actually in an Indian restaurant. I'm there. I've got my iPad out, which the pill camera is broadcasting live to there. And suddenly I go, hey! And the producer is completely thrilled because, as I said, up till that point, we could have done the whole thing and nothing happened, and that would have been something of a downer.
You mentioned the 5-2 diet before. It's 5-2's become code for people when they just say, I'm on the 5-2. Everybody seems to know what they talk about these days. But it's triggered a lot of book sales as well around the world. It
has, yes. It became an international bestseller. It became New York Times bestseller. Sold very well here. I've written another book recently called Blood Sugar Diet, which is also doing extremely well over here. So I seem to translate well. I mean, the thing I'm kind of banging on at the moment is diabetes and pre-diabetes, because those are a major health risk in places like Australia, but throughout the world, and frankly, particularly in Asia, because Asians, Indians, for whatever reason, are at much greater risk of diabetes. And it is reversible, it is treatable, and that's kind of one of the messages I want to get out there.
What should we look out for? I've seen a couple of titles, something on transplants, another one that had murder in the title.
Absolutely.
From you. Just tell us about that.
Yeah, one of them is kind of telling the history of trying to understand murderers. It's got some fairly gruesome interviews with people, but it's allowing us an insight into the mind of a murderer, if you like. There are some wonderful academics out there who almost collect murderers. One is a British scientist who went out to California. I said, why? He said, that's where the murderers are. In large numbers. So it's trying to understand what's going on in their brains, at least in part, to see if you can kind of anticipate, prevent, and in some cases treat. So it looks at that. I've also got one on transplants. Transplants I find endlessly fascinating, particularly I've done quite a few films on people who've had hand transplants. Yeah, those are a couple of programs coming out on BBC Knowledge soon.
It is time for a break. Coming up on Media Week, Fairfax and NZME ink a merger agreement. We'll bring you all of the details next.
The Audi A3 Runout is now on. Purchase the Audi A3 Sportback with style and technique packages from only $41,000 drive away. The Audi A3 Runout. Timing is everything.
Do your stuff. Did you hear what I say? I said everybody.
Starting a business isn't easy, but with determination and a domain, website and round-the-clock support from GoDaddy, people everywhere have built their businesses. Think you can turn your idea into a success? We know you can. Go you, GoDaddy.
A little bit more. Do your stuff.
Selling property comes with so many questions.
How do you find a good agent?
How do you find an agent you can trust?
The answer is very simple.
Open agent.
Open agent.
Open agent.
Using Open Agent takes the risk out of selecting the wrong agent.
You've got to get a great agent if you want top dollar.
The agent they recommended was so caring and professional.
They shortlisted the 2 best agents for us.
They made it easy. They listened and found us an excellent agent.
Selling with the right agent means less stress and could add up to a $40,000, $50,000, even $100,000 difference on your sale.
He sold our house in just 1 week for a good price.
And the price we got was well over our reserve.
Simply type in your postcode to get started. Compare real estate agents in your area and choose the right agent for you. It's 100% free for sellers.
I'm so glad I talked to Open Agent first.
Visit openagent.com.au or call us on 13 24 34.
Don't see humans around here much.
That's why we bought a Jeep.
What kind?
Grand Cherokee?
Does that have dual zone automatic climate control?
Yeah.
5-star ANCAP safety rating?
7 airbags.
Nice. What'd you pay?
45k drive away.
That's why you bought a Jeep. No photos.
The Jeep Grand Cherokee Laredo, now from just 45k drive away. Jeep, don't hold back.
Embark on a journey through the sands of time. When rulers were gods, innovations changed the world, and mankind left its mark for eternity. Egypt Month, this September, only on History.
As the push to change Section 18C gains momentum, Multicultural Affairs Minister Zed Seselja is my guest. And the budget repair task continues. Andrew Lee joins me to talk about the opposition's strategy. Sky News Live.
Welcome back to Media Week. Well, our co-host James Manning, editor and publisher of Media Week, is joining us here in studio. Now, let's look at some of the news this week, James. Fairfax and NZME have signed a merger deal. This is still subject to regulatory approval, though, isn't it?
Yes, it is, yeah. Look, I'd be surprised if it didn't get through. It has been delayed, but I think, look, for a lot of those print assets, this is really going to help secure their future, being able to share the costs, the sort of back-of-house costs, if you like. Fairfax is going to get about $50 million, just over 50 million Australian in cash, plus a stock, total value of about 200 million. The stock will give them a stake in the company of around about 41%, I think. So it's probably not a bad deal for Fairfax. They get some cash and then a good stake in the future of that business.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, James, you were also at another event this week, the Future Forum in Sydney. Tell us a bit about this.
Yeah, look, it's where all the newspaper executives get together. We did a couple of live crosses last week, spoke with Michael Miller, head of News Corp. And we also tracked down Michael Cook, who's the editor of the Toronto Sun, it's Toronto Star, isn't it? And we, very animated speaker. He's really interesting. He was there to talk a little bit about his app, the successes they're having over there. And we started off by asking him, tell us a little bit about the competitiveness in the Toronto market.
The Toronto Star is one of 6 daily newspapers in Toronto, 4 paid for, 2 are free. We have lots of competition in print still. It's a left-of-centre paper with a big push on social justice.
Okay, so it's quite encouraging to hear. How big a city is Toronto?
Well, a couple of million at least, you know. It's very similar to Sydney, to be honest. I'm surprised when I came here that, I see the problems that newspapers have. We have the same issues. And what we have today, the reason I'm here today is to talk about our new tablet app, which I believe does for newspapers what the Cirque du Soleil does for those tired old circuses. You know, the ones with the girl with the hole in her tights riding around on a horse and the trapeze artist, you know. Well, this takes all of that from old circuses to Cirque du Soleil, and that's the kind of stuff we have to do. So we've got all the values of old newspapering, but with the dynamism and the colour and the splendour and the pizzazz of the Cirque du Soleil. Another way to look at it is it's what I believe our app does, what Riverdance does for tired old Irish clog dancing. It's still very much the same, but you've seen Riverdance.
Does some of this enthusiasm you've got here, do you think that gets through the pages of the Toronto Star?
Well, not in the print edition, because that's very much the same as it was, 50 years ago. I mean, all newspapers are. We had a reporter at our paper in 1920 called Ernest Hemingway. You may be familiar with his work.
Yeah.
So he worked for the Star as a reporter for a couple of years. And if he came back into our newsroom a couple of years ago, he'd be very happy with the way things were being run. Now we've changed it upside down, and poor old Ernie would be a bit bewildered.
So the tablet app, the apps seem to peak, and maybe tablets maybe seem to peak, but you think there's still a business model there for an edition and a paid copy, paid subscribers for?
Well, it's not paid, it's a free app, okay. So the money comes from advertisers. And newspapers, we for a while we've known we have to cross that digital river, but we never really knew where the river was, and we didn't know how wide it was, and we didn't know how deep it was, but all we knew was we have to get on the other side. And we don't know what's there on the other side of that river, but we've got to cross it. And right now, like all newspapers, we're in the middle of the river.
Yeah. Now, are you sick?
That's MBA talk.
Are you sick 7 days a week?
7 days a week right now, but some papers in Canada have cut down to 1 day a week and gone on the app only. La Presse in Montreal is 1 day a week print, 7 days a week on the app.
Now, there's a lot of talk about that here. Some people expect Fairfax to make the Sydney Morning Herald and perhaps The Age both weekend-only editions. Yeah. But does that affect the brand itself, do you think, if you lose those midweek papers?
No, I don't think so, because the Toronto Star, like the other papers, has more people reading our journalism than ever before, thanks to the internet. I think the internet gave us a gut shot a few years ago, and we're still recovering from that. So, no, I don't think it damages the brand at all. You just have to move along with it. I was shocked when I picked up the Sydney Morning Herald yesterday, a Thursday, 40 pages. 40 tabloid pages, that's 20 broadsheet, and no more than 4 full pages of ads. I mean, I almost fainted when I saw that. Big problems here, big problems everywhere.
Yeah. I'm interested.
But when I say problems, I mean, I've got to say, it's a challenge, and we're all meeting that challenge and trying to. We just don't know where the finish line is, but we're in the race.
So do you have any digital paid content?
We had a paywall. It didn't work for us. Our numbers crashed. So we took the paywall off, and now we're trying to climb back up to where we were before. It's a long climb, though, if you do that and you fail.
Yeah. So we heard from the publisher of the Wall Street Journal today, Will Lewis, and he talked about, eyeballs, paywalls, and he thinks newspapers have to have special conversations with advertisers now. It can be a harder sell, but he thinks the rewards are there. Is that what you're doing?
Well, he's right, and he's one of the world's great newspapers. But like the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal and the Financial Times of London, or the World as it styles itself now, it's a very thin elite of people that read that paper, and many of the subscriptions are paid for by the business. So it's a wonderful thing if you're the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal. It's a different business model than our paper, or I suggest The Age or the Sydney Morning Herald. But I don't know that, because I'm waiting to hear. I'm waiting to hear today.
Sure. So tell us the content that drives your sales. How local are you?
Well, like everybody else, we're short of money, so we've pulled back from the world and we're focusing into our own market now. So it's very, very local, and it's mostly, as I say, social justice-driven, investigative-driven. The commodity news is no use to us. Everybody has it. So our brand now has become the investigative paper of Canada.
Okay. So you still invest in investigative journalism, long-form journalism?
Absolutely, but we don't do other things now that we used to do without thinking about it. So a tsunami in Japan, we wouldn't go anymore. Probably like your newspapers here.
Do you have group synergies? You part of a bigger group that you can call on that helps you with your costs?
Synergy, I've never really seen that work, to be honest. But sure, you have to pull back and get stuff from everywhere you can. And, we get photos off social media now, which we would never have dreamed of doing 3 years ago. It would have been a mark of dishonour if we'd done that. Now we do it all the time.
I hope you're going to tell me you stop short of filling your online pages with Twitter grabs.
We don't take Twitter grabs, except if you want to illustrate an entertainment story, a celebrity story with their Twitter feed. Sure, we put it in. It's an added little bonus for readers, I think. But like all social media, you have no idea if it's true or untrue. So that's also one of our big strengths, and I don't mean the Toronto Star, I mean all traditional media. Our big strength is, if it's in the paper or the digital equivalent, it's likely, in fact almost certainly, going to be true.
Yeah. So just to finish on then, so at the moment a robust 7 editions, 7 days a week, but have you had discussions about if you pulled the pin on weekdays? Or?
Like everyone else, we've talked about it, because there's tremendous costs on print papers, running the press room, delivering the paper. But no, we still make money on our print edition, although like everybody else, it's shrinking.
James Manning speaking with Michael Cook, the editor of the Toronto Star. Now let's take a look at the ratings for week 36 for free to air. Starting there, we can see 7 News Sunday, 9 News Sunday, the big music quiz, the block 7 News.
Yeah, Leanne, that big music quiz, one of Seven's big hits coming out of the Olympics. They had a few shows, some have gone better than others, but big music quiz has probably been the most successful.
Okay. If we head over
the bottom half of that
page,
top 10, look, a lot more news. You'll see the block in there. Blockers numbers holding up pretty well for 9. They'll be happy about that. It's helped make a big comeback after some dodgy weeks this year, and grew and slipping into the top 10, doing very well still for the ABC.
Okay. Fantastic. Now to the subscription TV ratings, starting with sport there.
Yeah, look, AFL had a weekend off really before the start of their final, so the NRL took over. That was their last weekend of regular games before their final series starts.
All right, now non-sport.
Yeah, look, Gogglebox again, way out in front there, doing very well, and a bit of animation there, The Simpsons and Family Guy, and a cartoon for kids, Peppa Pig.
All right. Fantastic. All right, for a little bit more now, let's return to our chat. We're going to chat around TV, starting off with 10, actually. They've commissioned a new adaptation of Kenneth Cook's classical Australian novel, Waking in Fright. Is that right?
It was retro week, really, Leanne. Picnic at Hanging Rock's coming back now, Waking Fright, another classic Aussie movie. Lingo Pictures, been a big week for Lingo Pictures. They've had a commission from Lifestyle. They're doing a Maggie Beard doco. She's going to Japan for them. Then something very different, the remake of this Waking Fright. Jason Stevens, Helen Bowden, the producers there. I think it'll do very well for 10.
OK, all right. And Stan, revealing a content roadmap for 2 years with Jungle. This is its go-to production house.
Yeah, look, no activity's been there. Well, that and Wolf Creek have been two sort of big commissions that have done very well for them. They've got a lot of overseas content which drives probably most of their eyeballs, but a couple of standout Aussie productions. They've gone back to Jungle for a few more things, a couple of quirky comedies. Season 2 of No Activity kicks off very soon, and then they've got some their roadmap for the next 2 years. They pointed out some of the content, and their deal with Showtime, the US cable channel, is really generating some great content for them. Twin Peaks is coming back next year, big cult show that'll be massive when that comes back, another series of Billions, so I'm sure that'll do very well for them as well.
Absolutely. James Manning, we'll leave it there. Thanks very much for joining us. That's all we have time for on this edition of Media Week. From the team here, thanks for your company.